What we're looking at here is an antenna that Radioddity sent over to take a look at. This is their mobile HF antenna, model RA-HF-008. RA-HF-008. And the MagMount that goes with it, which is model M916. So this is M916. Comes with what you see here. And this is the RA-HF-008. Comes with what you see here. So with this setup, this antenna will work on 80 through 6 meters by using various parts and pieces. I think basically you use the main piece and this extension rod, and then we change in and out either a long or short whip that then you tune appropriately for each band. So we will test this out. I'm getting ready to go on a road trip here soon, so we will be using this and see what kind of coverage we can get, and we'll report back. Okay, so I want to go over a couple of my concerns with this antenna and mount setup. I'm trying to get a shot here so that you can see this is screwed in tight to the mount at the bottom. And look at the amount of play that's in this antenna from that mount. Now the second one is this extension rod is screwed in tight here, and let me see if I can hold this still, and you can see the amount of play. So I think what I'm going to do when I'm done with the tuning testing that I'm going to show you, I think I'm going to go ahead and remove the shrink wrap that's around this antenna so that we can take a look at it a little bit closer. If you can see here up close the amount of play that seems to be right underneath this connection right here. I don't know if that's really coming across as to how much movement there is. And then on this end, it's at this joint. It's really kind of hard to try to relay how much play there is here. If you can try to, I don't know if you can see that or not. So I think what I'll do is I will take this shrink wrap off after I'm done doing all of the tuning testing, and we'll take a look at the construction underneath here and see if there's anything that can be done to make that more rigid. So while we're here, I also want to look at this mount. So this mount, it comes with these covers, which is great, except keeping them on seems to be a little bit of a challenge. They like to come off very, very easily. Now I understand that the reason that they want them so thin is so that they have, as much magnetic interaction with the vehicle to hold the mount on. And then this one here, they've got the metal foil on here, I think in order to try to help with the electrical connection with the body of the car, but then you put this over it and it pretty much insulates it anyway. So if you want, see, this one's already coming off here. If you want to have a good contact with the car, the best thing would probably be to just remove these and put the mount right on your car. But then, of course, that just lends itself directly with see, that just lends itself to scratching up your vehicle, which of course you do not want to do. Now, I did do a 1,500-mile road trip with this. It did not have any problem staying on the roof of my vehicle, but I think the biggest problem was just from a performance standpoint, not having a good ground plane. Even though it was on the top of my vehicle, the main problem, see, this is frustrating. The main issue was, I think, the ground plane with the top of my vehicle. This, ends up not making great contact. And on top of that, I was also trying to use my X6200 on battery mode, which of course then means the radio wasn't grounded to my vehicle and the antenna wasn't grounded to my vehicle. So I think from there, that's where the performance issues were sort of introduced. So with that, let's go do some SWR testing, and I'll kind of show you where we are on tuning this antenna, and we'll see what we can see there. All right, let's start looking at some of these SWR readings. We'll start at 80 meters. Before we get started, I do want to say that in order to get these SWRs that I was getting during this testing, the best SWRs I got, I had to ground the antenna base to my vehicle chassis, which, obviously probably makes some sense. Using my rig expert, obviously it's not grounded to the vehicle, and the antenna is not grounded to my vehicle, much like my X6200 wasn't grounded. So I think moving forward, obviously, anytime I would use this antenna in the future, I am going to ground the MagMount base to the chassis for better ground plane. So that being said, let's start off here on 80 meters. What you can see here is this. I tuned this portion for the lower part of 80 meters down in the basically the RIDI CW digital section, and I could get 1.76 to 1. This is 1.57 to 1 on 80 meters, and this is all the further up the band I could get. This is with the 80 meter setup with the whip bottomed out, so you can't get any higher here unless you were to actually trim the whip, which then may affect other bands. So this is all just strictly using what was provided, whip links that were provided, and the starting points where they suggested you start to tune the antenna. So with what's here and what is recommended for whips, this is all the further up the 80 meter band that I could get. So let's zoom out here and zoom back in. Here we are on 40 meters. I'm not quite exactly sure why I was getting this interaction on 40 meters when I tested it, but you can see here that the best SWR on this slightly odd looking little graph is 1.23 to 1. But once again, this is with the 40 meter whip bottomed out. I could not go any further up the 40 meter band without having to like clip the whip or what have you. So that's what 40 meters looks like. Now we will skip over 30 and hit to 20. So this is 20 meters. And for this, my whip length, I had 44 centimeters. Where I have written these down, they probably vary a little bit as to what the recommended starting points were, which I'm sure that will happen depending on the vehicle that you put it on. But here you can see the best SWR that I could obtain here on 20 meters was 1.67, and you might be able to move this around a little bit, your dip, depending on what part of the 20 meter band you want to operate. But that just goes to show you typically what the 20 meter band looked like. Now, 17 meters was kind of interesting. They give you two options, one for using the short whip and one for using the long whip. And this one here, the first one, this magenta colored one, let's see, what does it say? If I edit this, that is the short whip. All right, so this is the short whip, and you can see that's a pretty flat throughout the band, not too bad. 1.43, 1.42 across the 17 meter band. The long whip here, you can actually see your resonant down here somewhere, almost 18 megahertz. He hit about a 1.4. And this situation here is another one of those. This is the long whip bottomed out. So with the long whip, you're not gonna be able to move this further up into the 17 meter band. And then we will move over here to 15 meters. And at 15 meters, you can see, let's highlight it here. Where best I could get is about 1.34 to 1. And my whip length on 15 meters was 39 centimeters. So that's what 15 meters looks like. I'm not sure what this little guy is up here, but there you go. And then we'll move up to 12. So here's the 12 meter band. And here I had the whip set to 41.5 centimeters. And here we're seeing relatively flat across 12 meters. 1.39 at the bottom, 1.56 at the top. So not too bad there. I don't generally operate in the 12 meter band. Here's what 10 meters looks like. And here you can see 1.35 to 1 here. And you can move this around a little bit in the 10 meter band. This is just kind of where I settled here for demonstration. And then what's left is 6 meters. And this is where we ended up on the 6 meter band. Now the 6 meter band is another one where this is with the whip bottomed out. So you can't move this any further to the right without having to shorten that whip. So the best that you could get is down here at the bottom of the 6 meter band. I got 1.72 to 1. And of course, like I said earlier, if you have certain bands that you want to operate on, you could definitely shorten whips to fit your needs, or maybe even purchase some additional whips or make your own so that you could really dial in some of these bands a little bit better. So that's pretty much what the SWRs looked like. And we'll move on to the next part. All right, everybody. I said we were going to pull this wrap off of here and see what was underneath. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm kind of curious to see what's underneath for a couple reasons. Primarily, what makes the joints so sloppy, as I was showing you earlier. All right, so there you have it. What's inside? Who would have thought? A bunch of coils. But I think my biggest question that I wanted to see was, why is this interface? Look, I don't know if you can still see that, how much that wants to wiggle around in there. So it looks like that insert goes in there and then is soldered here. I'm wondering if it's possible, if I desolder this, if I can pull this insert out enough to maybe put it back in with some epoxy or something, because it's definitely not, so I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is definitely very loose in there, which I think is where all the wobble obviously is coming from. And I don't know why you wouldn't epoxy that in, possibly. I'm assuming that this end has the same issue. Yeah, that's loose in there as well. So it just seems like one extra step of maybe gluing those in or epoxying those in would potentially fix that. So I will let you guys know if I decide to take it to that point and see what we can come up with. I don't know if I'll be able to get it because I'm just curious if I'll be able to get that out. We'll see how clean this desolders. And then I bought some shrink wrap to put back over it, so if I get this firmed up, I will let you guys know, and I'll show you how it ends up when it's all done. All right, so what I've done here already, I took this insert out from this end, which basically just means I desoldered this wire from this insert. And then I pulled this out of the end of the fiberglass tube. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up and I'm going to epoxy this in. But I just, so that to show you guys, I figured I would take this other one out of this end and show you how I did that. Nothing super duper. You know what I might do? I think I'm going to have to eventually get a camera here that I can zoom in and out with, because this one doesn't allow me. So what I might end up doing, if I switch over to here, that's about all the further out I can get, but it's probably easier for you to see than on the bench. So we're going to add some flux, and I used a solder wick the first time, but I think what I'll do is let's just see what happens if we start right off with the solder sucker here. Alright, that actually seemed to work pretty good. I'm going to get a little pick out here that we can lift that wire up and out. Alright, good deal. Alright, so now I just used a little side cutter here. Just tried to lift up on this insert. Now the other one just came right out. This one is not wanting to play along. I don't want to distort it because I need to reuse it. Alright folks, that was a little bit more in depth than what I wanted. Here is the insert. So I'm thinking that what they're doing is they take this insert and I think they insert it and then they drill this hole into this insert. So we are going to epoxy this insert in and see if we can give it some more rigidity. So we're going to do both ends. The same thing here on the bottom. See, I think they put the insert in and then drill the hole into it. Which I don't know why, if they're going to do that, why they don't take the added step of just putting some epoxy in there to firm these up inside the tube, because it was so wobbly. So I think now what I'm going to do is exactly that. Okay. So let's start by mixing up some epoxy here. I've got just some 5-minute 2-part good standby mixing tool, toothpick. That's what I've used forever for my 2-part epoxy. All right, so let's start with the top insert. I'm going to just take some epoxy, and I'm actually going to not get it down here by the hole that I don't want that hole to fill. So we are going to just put some on here, and now we are going to go ahead put that in. Let's make sure that we've got alignment with that hole. Good. Yep, there we go. Make sure we're aligned, and then we are going to wipe off some excess. Oh, I did a good job of setting it right in the epoxy. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? I wasn't paying any attention. I was more worried about getting my alignment there than setting it down into the epoxy. All right. Now let's get this end, and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put the epoxy up around this part of the connector. Then we will do our insert here. And I'm going to get this back over here. Oh, there we go. All right. Wanted to make sure that we had our hole alignment. All right. There we go. Now we'll wipe off the excess epoxy, and then I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to magic of video. We're going to pause, and when we come back, this epoxy will be set up, and we'll see what we've got. Okay, I think what I've decided to do is I've let an initial set on the epoxy here, but what I'd like to do is I think I'm going to electrically reconnect this and then let it sit for maybe 24 hours before I put any actual load on it. What's interesting, I was noticing too here on the base end, you look at this fiberglass, you can see there's already cracks. I think from this base wiggling inside that fiberglass tube. Not the greatest thing. So let's go ahead and start off by reconnecting this end. I've already put this insert back in since I didn't destroy that one. So we'll start off by, of course, giving us some flux here. There was a YouTuber I used to watch, said, well, if you're not fluxing, you're not soldering. So I'll quote him, and we'll get some flux on here and get some solder flowing. And I will also put some flux on my wire here. We'll move that over. And there's a pair of tweezers. I'll start off with some bigger tweezers and see if those work. And I want to make sure that I all right, one end done. So on this one where in case you missed the first one and I didn't have it in frame, I'm going to actually go ahead and put some flux down in the hole. And we're going to see if we can get by without using that insert since I destroyed it. So we're going to, I think I'm also going to experiment here by taking some solder, putting it in here. Then we're going to put the wire down there. And then we're just going to see what happens. So that looks promising. Get my tweezers up here. Try a little bit more. Now the true test is, let's get the meter out here and let's check this end we just did. Actually, let's first clean it up a little bit. Some alcohol. All right, so let's first check and see if we have continuity between here and here. All right. Looks like we're good. And then let's switch to the far end. And we'll check between here and here and here. And then now we'll check the whole length of this section. Let me see, can I get all of it? I think I can. All right. We're here on this end, and we're all the way down here. All right. All that whole big coil of wire, we're looking about 2 ohms, maybe. That varies a little bit. All right, so I think we've made electrical contact. So that's good. So I think what I'll do is, like I said, I'm going to let this thing set up overnight before I put any strain on it to see if that has helped the wobble at all. But why don't we see if we can get the shrink wrap back around it. Hold on one sec. I was a little bit worried initially taking the shrink wrap off that they may have used like some of the marine shrink wrap or whatever where it has adhesive on the inside, because I thought, oh my word, maybe I won't be able to get it off. But as it turns out, they did not. So I think what we'll do is we will just see how we do on putting some shrink wrap on. So I think I'll start on this end. All right, let's see how this goes. All right, we are re-shrink wrapped. Now we will just hopefully that will cool down quickly. All right, folks, here we have it, back to normal, and we will catch up here tomorrow. I'm gonna let this set up 24 hours, and then we'll see if our wobble has been fixed or not. So we'll be back in 24 hours. Here is the antenna back on the base. This will give you an idea right off the bat. If I just, you can see how that stiffened it up quite a bit. It just now, it does not wobble, you know, like it did before. And then if I can I zoom in on this portion here to give you an idea. It doesn't wobble there. So I think that fixed the problem that we were experiencing with it being sloppy, so that's a good thing. So what are my thoughts on this antenna? Well, it initially reminded me a lot of the Outbacker from back in the day. That antenna was a little bit same concept, constructed a little bit differently from the standpoint of the taps, but it still used a tap system with the jumper wire and adjusting the whip. So far, my experiences are that this antenna, I think, would be fine for mobile operation, or maybe possibly if you wanted to just pull off the side of the road and do a POTA. The reality is getting out and switching bands, you could probably maybe set up, it comes with two whips, one long and one short, but the reality is you don't really use the long one for very many bands. I was looking for the sheet real quick. I don't have it in front of me. If you could set up multiple whips and have them pre-tuned to the bands you want to operate, obviously plugging and unplugging the jumper is not difficult. That's super easy. But if you need to retune a whip, you know, you want to switch between 40 and 20, and you have to not only just change the jumper, but you also have to get your Allen wrench out and reset the whip length. Yes, you could probably put down all of your measurements as to what they need to be, but from just a super simple setup, I would probably have multiple whips. Maybe you have to see if either Radioddity possibly can sell extra whips as a package, or just this piece, so that you could make your own whips and just have them preset to a specific length for the band that you want to operate. The reality is it works fine. The tuning issues can be addressed by actually cutting some whips to length in order to, 80 meters we can only get a portion up through the band, 40 meters we can only get a portion of the way through the band, and 6 meters we can only get a portion of the way through the band, all because the whips bottom out before you can hit a resonant tune. So that being said, I think it works fine. The only other thing that I would change is, I think the boots on this, I kind of made a big deal about them. But I think the reality is, you know what would probably fix this is if, keep this nice and thin like it is so that you have good magnetic interaction with the roof of your car. But I think if this lip was maybe made a little bit higher, then once you put them on, they might have less of a tendency to fall off. The biggest point where you really run into it is taking the antenna either in and out of your car or on and off of your roof. If you just catch the edge of one of these, the boot's coming off. That's pretty much just a guarantee. So, and then on top of that, as I stated earlier in the SWR readings, this metal foil, I don't think you get enough of a ground plane interaction with your vehicle. So what I did is I don't want to hit the antenna on the fan. I just ended up running a jumper from one of these bolts to the chassis of my vehicle, and that cleared up all of the issues with getting decent SWRs, especially like when I was using the X6200 on battery. It wasn't grounded to the car. The antenna wasn't grounded to the car. So I don't think we were getting a very good ground plane interaction. So it's an antenna. It's an option that you can use for your vehicle. I took a 1,500-mile road trip with this on top of my car. I did not have a single issue with it looking like it was going to come off or anything like that. So I think the bottom line is give it a shot if it's something that you think you might want to try out. Are there better options? Possibly. I don't do a lot of operating strictly from the vehicle. If I'm going to do a POTA or something, I obviously have my kits that I just take out and set up for that. So I hope this helps some of you that might be looking at this antenna. And with that, please like and subscribe if you think that would be a cool thing to do. I think it would be a cool thing for you to do. So if you can do that, that would be awesome. I appreciate all of you being here, and I will see you in the next one. 7 3s.